So we are going to, first of all, badges. If anybody wants to be in the raffle, if you could give your badges to Sophia in the orange basket, make sure they get in there if you want to be in for the raffle. So make sure you do that. And we're going to start off, I'm going to introduce Laura Ebert, Tribal Intergovernmental and Policy Division of EPA. Wherever you want to go. You can go there or you can go up here, whatever you want. Yeah.
Neve says I can stand over here, so I will. Follows directions well, it says on my performance review. Hey, folks. I'm Laura Ebert. I work for the United States Environmental Protection Agency. I am the director of the Environmental Justice, Community Engagement, and Environmental Review Division. And our division includes our work with 148 federally recognized tribes, which is some of the work that I am most proud of. I'm an enrolled member of the Muskogee Nation, and in this month of the year 2000, I attended my first EPA tribal conference as an employee of the Tolowa Dene Nation. It was my first job out of college, and this was one of the places where I formed my first big memories about this powerful work that we do together. I'm really excited to be here. It's been my great pleasure to participate in just about every conference since then and to see how this event and this convening has grown. It's really wonderful to see what each of the co-sponsors does to make these events special, and this has been a really great week this week. The work of EPA, and especially the work of the division that I lead, is diverse and important work that is rooted in communities. I believe strongly, and so do the folks that work in our division, that communities know best how to solve their problems, and it's our job to figure out how we can facilitate the power, the influence, and the resources from the federal government to help make that possible. I recognize that some of the problems that we're trying to solve are intergenerational in nature, that were started by issues and people decades ago, and will take longer than our lifetimes to resolve. Some of them are much more easy for us to address, and we're really excited to work on both of those kinds of activities with you with equal energy and attention. The work of my division includes not just our work with federally recognized tribes, but also with the U.S.-affiliated Pacific Islands. We do work along both sides of the U.S.-Mexico border in California, Baja California, and in Arizona, Sonora. We do work in communities with environmental justice concerns. We administer the Children's Health and Environmental Education Program and EPA's responsibilities under NEPA, the National Environmental Policy Act, to provide oversight of other agencies' documentation relative to federal undertakings. All of our work is the place where EPA's mission meets people. I feel really strongly about the necessity of this work that we do and the power of this work that we do. And I'm so pleased to work alongside so many motivated and dedicated individuals at this agency and elsewhere who are committed to the idea of federal service. I've really enjoyed seeing many friends and colleagues this week. It's been so great to spend time in sessions and outside of sessions getting to know folks. If this is your first conference or your 25th conference, I hope that you're leaving here with some bright ideas about things that you're excited to do when you get home. We were just talking a little bit about that at our table, how motivated and inspired we feel leaving this conference and ready to get back to work. This year's conference theme was Stories of Wisdom, Harnessing the Power of Traditional Ecological Knowledge. And we continue to make strides at the Environmental Protection Agency to incorporate the principles of traditional ecological knowledge into our own work. And this is a process. This is a process by which we are trying to learn from tribes how to do this well. We are in the process of thinking about how we can incorporate traditional ecological knowledge considerations into grant documentation, what's appropriate, what's not appropriate for the federal agency to ask of tribes and to do with information that we receive. We're also talking and thinking about how TEK incorporates into risk assessments and the standards that we use for cleanups and other things that are important to tribes in the places where you currently live or the places where you are from. There are other ways that we're trying to make sure that EPA employees are deeply informed by the first-person lived experiences of tribal citizens, which include prioritizing dollars for travel for project officers and other EPA staff to come see you where you are to understand your perspective on the problems that we're trying to solve together. There's never enough of that available. There's never enough time in the year or dollars in the budget to make it possible all of the time. but we're working hard to prioritize what resources that we have and want to recognize that that is a very important part of us upholding our responsibilities to you. So there are some other ways that we've been thinking and talking a lot about traditional ecological knowledge in the work that we do, and want to recognize that there are extreme weather events that have been occurring with much greater frequency and severity in recent years, over years in more distant memory. In Region 9, we're still actively involved in some long-term mitigation and response and recovery efforts after the wildfires in Maui in 2023. That wildfire devastated the town of Lahaina, and our responders work very closely with Indigenous communities and local residents to help in both the disaster response and all of the mitigation activities that have proceeded since. The nation is currently witnessing loss of lives and widespread destruction in the southeast relative to 2 hurricanes, and we know that there are more to come. I don't need to preach to this choir. I know that all of you have experienced much more poignantly the impacts of a changing climate, and that your communities have felt first and greatest the impacts of this climate change on your lifeways, on the critical ecosystems that you depend on, and on the potential impacts to the traditions that you hold most dear. I want to clarify that EPA does not consider tribes to be environmental justice communities, but I do want to note that EPA's environment and climate justice resources present some really significant tools that may be of interest to the communities that you serve in terms of accessing big grant dollars and large swaths of technical assistance intended to help communities armor themselves against the impacts of climate change and address environmental justice concerns that result. This administration's heightened support for environment and climate justice is under the Inflation Reduction Act, and it's just one of the ways that our agency has been working to deepen the intersection between environmental work and climate-based work. The environmental justice community change grants have made approximately $2 billion of resources available to communities to consider tangible actions, including infrastructure, to address environment and climate justice challenges. The community change grants notice of funding opportunities is available through November 21st of this year. You may be currently part of a proposal that is approaching consideration or part of a proposal that has recently been considered. If the community for which you work is interested in making an application, I want to encourage you to do so. Funds are still available, and we're looking forward to celebrating those $2 billion of investments with the public soon. We've heard a lot of really meaningful conversations at this conference. On Tuesday, I was really pleased that all of my colleagues at the US EPA showed up here in person to talk about the work of their divisions relative to tribes. It was really pleasing to see how the TEK theme was woven in across presentations throughout the week, including on Tuesday, the Pinoleville Pomo Nation's discussion on seed saving for native plants. I really love the way that they have been centering that work. On Thursday, earlier today, we heard from the Washoe tribe on the Meeks Meadow Restoration Project. And for those of us that have been knocking around this body for a long time, we know how special that place is. I also know that several folks got to go on a field trip out to Meeks Meadow at a prior conference. And so I hope you were able to celebrate those accomplishments with the Washoe tribe. This was a really incredible agenda. High five to everyone who worked so hard to fit so much in to this week. I want to recognize Viejas Band of Kumeyaay Indians on behalf of Region 9. I want to say I know, but I realize I do not personally know. I can imagine how complicated this work is, and I want to celebrate the grace with which you have performed in this role. This has been an amazing week. You've done an incredible job throughout the year preparing for and delivering this conference. It's been a delight to work with you. I want to specifically name Sophia Bejarano, Bryce Olmsted, Daniela Mejia, and others who worked with you to coordinate this conference. We're really grateful for the dedication and the commitment that you've demonstrated. I also want to thank EPA staff who support this effort every year. The tribal section in the division that I lead, that I won't name because it'll take me 5 more minutes to read it out, work closely with conference co-sponsors to organize this event. Specifically, Jeanette Sasek, thank you so much. And also, dear Sophia Yuso. Sophia, are you around? Someone's pointing in an indeterminate direction. We'll assume, Sophia, that you're so thrilled with our applause that you've hidden somewhere. Sophia and Jeanette worked really closely in coordination with Viejas to make this work, and I really appreciate it. That part of the work I do get to see, and I understand how hard you're working to make this possible, and I really appreciate it. This venue really matters. As I'd said earlier this week, this is one of the things that I feel strongest about that EPA does to show up for tribes, and so I really appreciate the work that you put in. Thank you for doing so. Sophia, wherever you are, indeterminate place, thank you for doing so. Oh, you're right there. Oh, holy cow. Thank you. And then thanks to all of you. Thanks to everyone who showed up this week. Thank you for your energy. Thank you for putting the effort in. Thank you for celebrating the speakers. Thank you for engaging with folks. And most especially, thank you for taking something from this conference back to the community that you serve and hopefully doing something important and impactful with what you've learned. I'm so proud to do this work. I don't know, the rest of this is just like, oh, thank you, thank you. I'm really proud to do this work. I have the best job in the whole world. I cannot possibly think of a better job except maybe the jobs that each of you do. You all probably have really amazing jobs. I hope you feel the way that I do. Thank you so much for this space. Thank you to all of my teachers. So many of you are part of the community that I consider the folks who have taught me the most about the job that I do, the responsibilities that I have, and the way that I can show up every day. So thank you for being part of that, and have a great day.
Thank you. All right, and now I'd like to introduce Mio Marufo, Eastern Pomo from the Clear Lake Basin and citizen of Robinson Rancheria, and incredible artist. She did the stickers with the girl and the hawk. All right.
I was hoping most of you would be gone by now. But no, I forgot there's a raffle. So because you're all waiting for a raffle, I'll take a really long time. So I was asked to give the closing remarks for this conference. And when I was asked, I whispered into the phone, you know, I don't work for EPA anymore, right? But apparently somewhere along the line, I forgot that I'm a cultural bearer too. So I decided to do one last PowerPoint, Stories of Wisdom, Harnessing the Power of Tech. One more. Harnessing the Power of Tech. First, let me say that some of you will have heard this spiel from me before. I think that it's important to understand how others characterize tech so that we can refine it and don't lose sight of the meaning for us as separate tribes and individuals. So what is tech? Tech started being used in the 1980s to give name to a body of knowledge that Indigenous people hold. I think also because the term holistic was already being used by the hippies. There's no universally accepted definition of traditional ecological knowledge. Here's one definition. I'm not going to read it. We've been hearing it all week. Next. So here's my version. There are 5 facets of tech. Ethics and values. How we teach something is as important as why we do things a certain way. Maybe it's less harmful to the environment to pick a plant a certain way or take game at a certain time. Factual observation. What is happening that day? Is the sun a certain way? Is the weather clear? Which birds are singing? Culture and identity. How do we use something? And why is it important that your women wear tule skirts? Why don't we use certain feathers in dance? What do the stories mean to us now? Management systems. Do hunters take year-round or do they wait for breeding seasons or birthing seasons? Do acorn gatherers take during the first fall or the second fall? Past and current uses. How do we process and why do we do things the way we do? It leads me to a story, because this is stories of wisdom, right? My mother and I were processing acorn one day. We wanted to split them so they would dry faster and we could look for bugs. I grabbed some sharp paring knives and we started opening them. The first thing we noticed was that the acorns reacted to the knife metal and started turning dark where we cut. But we kept going, acorns slipping and coming out of our hands. It was a task. My mom turned to me and said, "There has to be a better way. How did our people do it more efficiently?" I said back to her, "Well, I do have an acorn cracking rock, but I thought this might be faster because it's still wet, and I usually only use it with dry acorn." Well, in case you ever wondered where I get my potty mouth from, it's from my mom. So after she laughed and cussed me out a little bit, we got the cracking rock out. It is a round rock with a small divot in it. You put the point of the acorn down in the divot and you tap the top with a pestle. This pops the acorn and splits it down the side for easier cleaning. Not only is this traditional method easier and faster, traditional methods also allow for socializing and working together. Next. Harnessing tech in our tribal environmental programs. Start conversations. Start conversations with your individual tribal governments about the cultural landscapes. This is for tribal programs both on the tribal side and the EPA side. Conversations are two directions. They start slow because of historical trauma. Tribes are not going to jump in fast, so listen. Understand each tribe is different. Start the conversation before you write the document. My mouth's getting dry, sorry. Start conversations with your individual culture bearers about what they are seeing and feeling. So how do we get those stories from them? We've heard several dynamic speakers talk about reaching out to their communities. Large community meeting with food, smaller meetings with groups like your elders or your youth, individual meetings. Here's something interesting, seek that person out and introduce yourself. So notice I put faces of expressions, lots of expressions. You will hear happy stories. You will hear anger. You will quite possibly cry or be shocked. It's okay to feel. For example, when our tribes talk about fishing areas, we're not talking about Pa and Opie's fishing hole. We're talking about the area in which generations of young people learn the traditions of our people, where they learn to feed and the duty they owe to their community. Thanks. The names of those fish in our languages and the roles we have in caring for that land that provides those fish. It's because I'm nervous. And right now, there are areas that don't have fish. There are tribes that have been moved from their fishing areas and lost language. There are tribes that are touching water for the first time in 100 years. There will be emotion. And if you aren't willing to hear it, then how will you learn from it? Next. Work with your cultural bearers to identify needs and changes in cultural landscape. This is an important one because sometimes you may hear from a cultural person, a basket weaver will go like this. I started noticing changes a couple of years ago when I was watching the willow and checking where to gather. The willow was ready for gathering for peeled sticks almost a month earlier than usual, and for unpeeled sticks almost a month later. Sometimes the weather changes gathering times, but the next year, same thing. I was at a group with other basket weavers, and I asked if they noticed changes, not prompting them about telling them about what I was seeing, but asking what they were seeing, listening, and then asking how they were dealing with it, trying to see if there was something I could do to help with it. What I found out was that some of the weavers were leaving certain areas alone, and then they were copicing really hard in other areas. Next. There are more acorns during the first fall with worms and less during the second fall. When they do fall in some of the trees, most of the acorns are shriveled from the lack of water, but this doesn't show until they're dried. Last year's acorns harvested from one tree, I was very disappointed to crack nuts after drying them and find out the nuts were no good. That's a lot of work. So the typical family of yesteryear sustained off of acorns and would gather probably about 1,000 pounds in order to make it from 1 year, one gathering season to the next gathering season. with enough for a few larger community activities thrown in the mix. Today, we don't eat acorn every day, but those cultural people who demonstrate or provide during events like community gatherings, weddings, and funerals, those people are still gathering hundreds of pounds, and they're providing wild tastes for our people and need to maintain access and healthy plants. It is also important to tech because of the language that are associated with those plants, the processing, and the ambient surroundings. I don't know why you guys are making me so nervous. I've known you guys for 25 years, and I'm really sorry, but I am. Making changes are harnessing by inserting tech ideals and implementation methods. Policy changes taking traditional ecological knowledge into account. What are the cultural people seeing? Are they quantifiable? Probably not through Western science, but anthropological markers of change are identifiable. Does the tribe have traditional methods of land use historically already in place? Examples of policy changes that have taken traditional ecological knowledge into account, using indigenous fire management methods and burning practices to improve ecosystems and lessen catastrophic fires in California. Dry farming and other indigenous-based irrigation management systems that show knowledge of the cultural landscape in Arizona and New Mexico. The importance of traditional ecological knowledge in environmental programs. Tech is complementary to Western science, not a replacement. We don't need to replace anything. We need to add our methods back in. Tech can be key in preservation and sustainability of an area's diversity. Tech is important to meeting climate action planning. Problems for traditional ecological knowledge. Quantifying tech scientifically for reporting purposes. How do you show that a planting style will work before it's done in order to receive funding to do the project? The use of tech as a set of markers conditioned to trigger a response. There are markers, but tech is about taking all of that into account. Place-based science. Tech is regional. Translating it on a national scale means training to regions about working with tribes and villages. Enforcement of regions to take tech into regional consideration. Understanding and acknowledging that the tribes and villages are different. Western science often dismisses tech. See the first bullet of quantifying. Introduction and expansion of urban life has encroached on the tech passage to new generations. We are losing generation of our cultural bearers, and because of the current climate, some of that knowledge will not be able to be passed on because of access. Tech is scary. When you think about historical baseline water numbers of a time when fish were thriving, agencies can't meet them, and it scares them. But we can't forget about how things used to be. We need to harness that information and strive for cleaner lands. A quick story. So many of you have heard this story, but it's stories of wisdom harnessing the power of tech. So I'm going to tell it. But first, a drink of water. My tribe asked me to design a billboard talking about drought or water conservation. I looked for the word drought in Eastern Pomo, and I couldn't find it in any of my notes. I don't speak fluent Eastern Pomo, just a few words here and there for self-defense. Then I looked back further, still nothing. I went back to the time of my grandmother and before. I went back through the collective linguistic memory of over 250 years generational. I am from Habatin, meaning big water. In fact, the largest body of fresh water fully within the state of California. I found words for flood, many words for different types of rain, but no words for drought. No words for drought in 200 years. Think about the magnitude of this. So I came up with the phrase, when there is little water, Chine Kuksa, every drop counts. The research to develop this billboard would cover all facets of tech. And it also started a real conversation with our tribe wants to do in order to protect our waters. How do we take this knowledge from our history, our traditional ecological knowledge, and use it to protect today's land and water? Given the changes that we are seeing, how do we harness the power of tech? And I mean all of us, tribes and EPA. I've got good news and bad news. The bad news, see slide 9. The bad news is that even the federal executive order for the integration of tech into federal policy decision-making is still not going to make it happen quickly. The bad news is that with every new hire, we have to explain that we are individual tribes with individual needs. The bad news is that administrations change every election, no matter who gets in. The bad news is that grant funding is on a continuum and doesn't grow very often. But here's some good news. Our people have stories of coming of a change, a great change. We now know what it is. It's climate change. We've named the beast. But our stories also have told us of survival. It doesn't tell us who, it doesn't tell us how, but it says that we will survive. I was teaching a class of youth once, and I asked them why they wanted to learn about acorn processing. A hand shot up. We want to learn how to survive the zombie apocalypse. I told this to a group of adults that I was presenting to. They laughed too. It's funny. But what if Creator is telling those children that they need to turn back to tech in order to survive? Is learning about acorn processing going to save us? No, but processing, the learning of plants, the caring of our community, the idea of being part of that community may do just that. The power of tech is ours. We may allow others to use and learn about it, but it is ours. Our knowledge, our history, our people, our stories, and most of all, our land. Continue to protect it and fight the good fight. Yahweh for all you do. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so we are going to announce some winners of the children's raffle. Is next on the agenda. Oh, okay. These are the artwork. Yeah. So this one is Okay, Braylon, third grade, EPA Nation of Santa Isabel. And then we have JW, 12 years old, 7th grade, also from Santa Isabel. And finally, Savannah Robinette, 18 years old, Tejon Indian tribe. So. Lovely. And now the raffle. You're going to hold up. All right, we have You Are on Native Land. Yes. And Anna Holder. All right. And the next one.
Another one.
You Are on Native Land, Peter Early. Yep. I think he's coming. All right.
And there's also like a
Oh. All right. And the next one, also a pen vote for an Indigenous future. Yeah. All right. So that person is Mario Donahue, Chemehuevi. You Are on Native Land, Jacob Jupp. Jesse Russell.
and this one is like some socks and some pins and stickers.
Oh, okay. So the bag, is it? Yeah. All right. Felicia Hill. And Cameron Harris. And John Katz. And Megan Smart. And Alyssa Caravas. And Ryan Eberly. Ryan Eberly. All right. Darren Kupal. And Chantal Crozier.
Come on, Chantal. Come on, Chantal.
Jackie Calancini. Dakota Perez. Roger Kintz. Joe Weir. Christopher Pullman. Joseph Gonzalez. Oh, nice. All right, towel and soap. Nice. Blanket, Pendleton, yeah.
8th generation.
8th generation. Mel Joseph. Okay, another 8th generation. Cruz Regla. All right. Beautiful.
All right, one more blanket.
Ashley Pomona.
And then,
Yeah, congratulations.
good job, good job. And last but not least, this is a gift from Mia. Mia Murphy.
Oh, and Mio Marufo.
Oh, wait. This one is from Mia Murphy.
Oh, sorry. This is from Mia Marufo. It's our last raffle auction item.
There's a calendar,
Wow, so from her beautiful artwork.
some earrings,
Ooh, lovely.
and here, huh?
A calendar, earrings,
And a wonderful scarf inside.
a wonderful scarf, a card. Yeah, just beautiful work. Okay. Okay.
Oh, to open it? Oh, okay. I thought you said not to.
Okay. Wow. Beautiful. Ross Stimmock. That's beautiful. He's not here, Ross? Going once. Going twice. Third time. Petty Ramirez. All right. Okay. So we also have some lost and found items. A notebook. All right. And in the parking lot, there were 2 bags found. One is a backpack, and the other is a tote bag. So if anybody lost any of those in the parking lot, you can collect them. Oh, what is? And a hoop earring, silver hoop earring. So those are up here to collect. Okay. Okay, and again, we would like to thank the sponsors and of this event and the Viejas Band of Kumeyaay Indians again for hosting this amazing event and experience that we've had over the last 4 days. And I'd like to just end things with a few last words. And so I'm going to repeat some words I said Monday when we started, Monday night. Because I think it's so important. So tech matters, and part of tech, I feel like, is knowing the stories, knowing the stories of the land, and having relationship. And so when I say the word stories, again, I'm talking about the way that Leslie Marmon Silko talks about stories when she says stories aren't just entertainment, don't be fooled. They're all we have to fight off illness and death. The way N. Scott Momaday talks when he says anything is bearable if you can make a story out of it. And the way that poet Joy Harjo writes when she writes, I can hear the sizzle of the stars and know anything of meaning, of the magic emerging here. And I am witness to the flexible future and evolving past. And I know that we will live forever as dust or breath in the face of stars. Stories contain everything possible and impossible. They are portals to other dimensions. Indigenous stories carry the essence of our ancestors, and the spirits of the land can talk to us through the stories. Indigenous stories hold the moral center of the world, a compass for how to be a human being in relationship with ourselves, each other, the land, the world. And so I also told a story, a Chippewa, Anishinaabe story about Kichimanitu, and how we each have this essence within us tied to our purpose and our journey. And it's so important that we do that, and when I was watching the karaoke last night and the way that people showed up, I was just so impressed. I just felt like, like each individual has done things to become who they are, and then they're expressing it. And that's part of that, that unique essence that we each have. And it's so important. And when we all do that, we all do our own purpose, we develop that within ourselves, we have so much to offer to the community and so much more in terms of solutions for the world. So imagine a world where Indigenous stories and knowledge wasn't just preserved, but actively engaged on our journey to solve today's problems. And as Indigenous people in the teachings that many of us have, there's also this power within us that we've been given to be able to sort of manifest that essence. And so we have that power, so connecting to that thing. And so just taking a moment, one of the ways, we started off Monday with the elements, connecting with the elements. And so that air element, the breath of life, just feeling that breath. That breath is so much connection to all things. We share that together. And also we can use that breath to sort of follow it within into our hearts and activate our power there. And that, sometimes we want to stay away from that because of pain, of so much that has happened, and such an amazing, incredible fact for Indigenous people to be here, given everything that's happened. There's such a strength. So there's pain, but there's also love, and love is so incredibly powerful. And so that story I told about the Paiute story about that mountain goat, his father Shinho, who when he knew his son wasn't coming back to the earth, he didn't close his heart off. Instead, he opened it up and was able to send his love, and that love turned his son into the North Star that is a guide for us out there in the sky. And we also have that within ourselves when we connect with our breath and we're mostly still, just like the North Star. There's a guide within us too. And so just for a moment, just taking a breath, just feeling your breath all the way in, breathing into your heart, and the breath all the way out. And just taking that with you, your power, your purpose, your essence, it matters. So thank you. We don't say goodbye in many indigenous languages. In Chippewa, Gegawabamin Minawa, until I see you again, and I will see you again. Miigwech.